I'm Medusa, Queen of Adelan. I need money.
Hey, how's it going, everybody? Today I'm going to be talking about the show Inhumans, which is a Marvel show that aired in 2017. This is one of those Marvel projects that has largely been forgotten. Part of that is happenstance. There's a lot of Marvel projects, and so some of them are just naturally going to fall by the wayside. But also part of that is by design. Marvel is not ultra proud of this project. This project was not a success. This show, in my opinion, is kind of insane and not in a good way. It felt all over the place at times. There are highs, there are lows, and I understand completely why this show didn't perform to the level that Marvel was maybe hoping that it would. The opening scene in the very first episode of this show is the scene that's supposed to kind of draw you in. That's, if you're making a show or a movie, that's the scene that's supposed to entice you, make you want to know more. If you're making a show or a movie, you want that opening scene to draw audiences in. And if you're like me, if you're in the audience and you're watching these things, you want to be drawn in straight away. You want to care about this story and about these characters. But the only thing I could think about during the opening scene was that it felt off. I don't know if it was the pacing of the dialogue, if it was the dialogue itself, or if it was the delivery of the dialogue. At least one of those things felt off to me, if not all of them. And speaking of the acting in this show, it was up and down throughout. It was not a strong point in this show, I wouldn't say. There were highs and there were lows in the acting, and the range was significant. And while I wasn't a fan of the acting overall, I thought that there were some good and fun performances that balanced it out a little bit. Anson Mount was great as Black Bolt. I thought he did a great job, especially considering that the character doesn't speak. And I thought that Iwan Rheon, I probably just butchered his name, but I thought he did a good job as Maximus. And I think that that was probably the most interesting character in this show. I think that Maximus had the most interesting story arc based on the story that was told. And I thought there were a few more fun and interesting performances and characters in this show, but there were some characters that I just never really could connect with, even though they were in the story quite a bit, and some that were just around for an episode or two. I just couldn't connect with all these characters. And part of that falls on the performances, but a lot of it has to do with the writing. The story itself is actually decent, but I think that the execution is where this show kind of falls apart. I don't think that this show had the budget to pull off the type of show that they were hoping this could be. And that's unfortunate, but that's just the way things go sometimes. But even outside of any budgetary issues that this show may or may not have had, it still makes choices that impact its success in a negative way. For example, this show is dependent on people with guns or other long-range weapons being unable to hit a target from distance or from close-up. Fire rate, capacity, range, none of this makes a difference because no matter what, everyone who's in the line of fire will just get away. And I say everyone, but it's everyone who's important to the story at all. And there are even times when people with guns or other long-range weapons are ordered to take out somebody or eliminate somebody, and instead of staying 30, 40, 50 feet away where they are with a clean line of sight, they'll walk up until they're 2 feet behind a person and then try to do something. And then also wait for that person to make a move instead of doing their job immediately. And so people are just surviving in this show because of the incompetence of the writing. There's only so much you can expect an audience to suspend its disbelief. When you're talking about superpowers or superpowered beings, there's a little bit more leeway there, but when you get to things that people actually understand and have experience with and can relate to and understand how they work, like guns, you can't just pretend like no one understands how these things work. And I think unfortunately this show shoots itself in the foot a little bit by doing these things that defy all logic and reason. And unfortunately I think that's one of my main takeaways from this show. They made a lot of questionable decisions and shot themselves in the foot many a time. There's a moment in the show when Black Bolt goes to Earth and he takes something from a store without paying for it. And he assaults a security guard, and then a cop tries to stop him and he assaults a cop. And then the cops come, and even though they kind of had the situation under control, they basically police brutality him. They're really beating on him with those batons, and this is before they know he has powers or anything like that. And then during that, he accidentally flips a car using his powers, and the police see that and they understand that something crazy just happened. This guy probably has some form of power, or there's something really off about this guy. And so they arrest him and take him to the police station. And tell me why, after all of that, they're going to take his picture for processing and booking and all that. No one's looking at him, and he still has his communication device and answers a call. Tell me how that could possibly be the case. You're telling me after all that happened, you didn't search him at all. You didn't take anything off of him. He's just there. You know, he could have any sort of weapons in that jacket he's got because he still has his communication device, so you clearly didn't look. And I'm just supposed to sit here watching this being like, oh yeah, that makes sense. But then again, what should I expect from the show that introduces an Inhuman whose power is being a projector? This show definitely has an issue with the choices that it makes, and something that's somewhat related to that is that this show also has a character problem. As the main villain of the show, Maximus is obviously not a great guy. We see him do a lot of things that aren't very good. He's responsible for a lot of people's deaths, and so clearly he's not the best guy. But even though he manipulates people and he only garners support by telling the people what they want to hear in a lot of instances, the fact that he's able to garner support from the people so easily just speaks to the fact that what he's saying, while manipulative, is not necessarily incorrect. The people do feel like the royals treat them poorly and they don't like this sort of class system that they're living in. And we hear and see that firsthand through some of the other characters in this show. They aren't satisfied with the way that things are. And so I think that while Maximus is doing everything for his own benefit, he doesn't actually care about the people at all. It does speak to a larger issue with the characters in this show. And that is that our heroes, our royal family, our good Inhumans, the people that we're supposed to be rooting for throughout this show, are also not great people. The actual citizens of Adelan, which the royals rule over, are not happy with their rule. They're not happy with their lives as a result of their rule. They did feel like the royal family treated them poorly, and honestly, I can't blame them. If my Inhuman power wasn't deemed useful in the royal palace, or in one of these prestigious jobs, and I was just sent to the mines to go mine for the rest of my life, I would also feel wronged. And unfortunately, this show does a poor job of redeeming our heroes. They are not perfect people, and I feel like the show wants you to recognize that and see that a little bit. There are instances when they are faced with those accusations of you treat people poorly, or you do this or that, and we're not satisfied with this. But unfortunately, every acknowledgement of that comes with them doubling down, and so I feel like they don't actually learn any lessons. They don't actually grow and evolve as characters. They kind of just are what they are, and we're meant to root for them, but they're not great people. I had a hard time personally rooting for them throughout this show. I wasn't necessarily rooting for Maximus either, but I wasn't rooting for them half the time, and that also factors into me not being able to connect with certain characters. There's a level of arrogance that I just couldn't get behind with some of these characters that are meant to be our good people, and so I just had an issue with the characters in this show, and I think that would be a real problem for any story, and it wouldn't surprise me at all to learn that other people also had problems connecting with these characters. I've always known Inhumans was not a popular show, but I feel like now, after watching it, I understand why a little bit better. The show was panned by audiences and critics alike, resulting in the show being canceled after its first season, and I understand why. I wasn't totally miserable while watching this show, but after having watched it, I have no desire to watch a second season anyway. And I wouldn't be surprised to learn that other people also feel that way. The people that didn't outright hate this show, and the very few people that might love this show, I feel like there are quite a bit of people that probably are where I'm at. Not miserable, didn't love it, have no desire to continue. This is one of those shows that could have had a very high potential, but unfortunately what we got is just kind of disappointing. Out of all the live action Marvel shows that I've seen, this one's my least favorite. But yeah, let me know what you thought of the show Inhumans in the comments down below. Is this one that you've seen? Is this one that you've even heard of? Because I know this show isn't popular, but it's also not really widely known that it exists. If you want to help me out here on YouTube, liking this video, commenting on this video, subscribing to the channel, or checking out some of my other videos, all help me grow the YouTube channel. I've done other movies, TV shows, a little bit of gaming here and there, and so if any of that sounds good to you, go check it out. But yeah, until next time.
This is the Queen of Adelan speaking. I require money.